Thieves stole more than 8,000 cars in Toronto last year, a major increase over previous years. And such thefts are not just a big city problem. With us now for a closer look, Tara Hodgkinson, assistant professor in criminology at Wilfrid Laurier University. And we're very happy to have you here in our studio. First time, I think, isn't it?
Really happy to be here. Yes, first time.
Excellent. Sheldon, you want to bring this up? We want to show some headlines. This is, on the question of is car theft in Ontario on the rise, here are some of the headlines. This is off CTV. New tricks leading to alarming rate of car thefts in Toronto. Then from the CBC, a major increase in auto thefts in 2022 has victims and industry experts calling for action. And this from the Toronto Sun, organized car theft ring bust nets 215 stolen vehicles, 51 arrests, York cops. Okay, if we go by these headlines, it would suggest that we've got a major problem on our hands right here. Is that, in fact, the case?
I don't want to deny that the numbers have increased in the last year. They absolutely have. And so I think to say that they haven't would be silly. Of course they have. But I think we want to take these headlines and these numbers in context. And so largely we've been seeing a slight increase in the last couple of years in auto theft. We've seen a very dramatic increase in the last year. But overall, over the last sort of 20 years, which is generally how we'll look at things in terms of data, the trend is downward. And so we really want to consider why we might have seen a spike in the last year or so.
What do you come up with?
Well, we have to recognize that the last 2 years we've had COVID, and COVID had a significant impact on crime. So in nations like Canada and other nations like the UK and the US and Australia, we saw steep declines in crime. It was probably one of the most fascinating trends we've seen over the last sort of 25 years in crime. And so this is comparing to something that was probably a record low for Canadians. So 2020 and 2021, most crime types, including property crime types like auto theft, declined substantially. And so if we compare to the last 2 years, of course it's going to look like a massive increase because COVID was a record low for most places.
So a little perspective is in hand here.
Very important, yes.
Okay. Do we know whether or not most thefts of automobiles take place in a homeowner's driveway or somewhere else?
We don't actually currently know. So a lot of, there is data to indicate where that generally happens, but the suggestion is that most of the auto thefts that we've seen in the Canadian literature tend to occur in parking lots that aren't supervised, in driveways that don't have carports, that's very Australian of me, but
we know what you mean.
You know what I mean, garages. And so there's a lot of places that are more prone or more susceptible to having automobiles stolen, but generally we don't have a solid idea on where that is in Canada.
Why not?
It just hasn't been researched. So the data isn't as strong in Canada. We don't tend to have access to it. We don't tend to have specific XY coordinates, so i.e. address level data. So that makes it very difficult to determine exactly where those locations are. We do have some, but not enough.
You know when this really got on people's radar? Do you remember what happened that put this on people's radar?
I don't think I do.
Okay, everything in life is about the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Fair enough.
Do you remember when Mitch Marner got his car stolen?
Is that where you think it started? Is that where the conversation began?
I tell you what, now this is purely anecdotal evidence. I don't have academic research to base this on. But when Mitch Marner got carjacked,
yeah.
I noticed a lot more people talking about, oh my God, car thefts and carjacking and all of this. It's really up, isn't it?
Yeah.
It sometimes takes something big like that, I guess, to put it on people's radar.
Yeah, and once it can be noticed by one person who's potentially famous, we tend to see those kinds of things crop up in the media much more.
Okay, if the numbers then relative to COVID are actually not as fearsome as those headlines suggested, why do you suppose that is?
I think that oftentimes we have folks who don't fully understand trends in crime, right? So either they don't have access to the data, and that, is absolutely an issue in terms of having access to this information. But it also can indicate that we're trying to get support for particular programs, or we have folks who have increase in ownership. So, for example, automobiles have been purchased out of record highs in the last couple of years. And so that literally means there's just more automobiles to steal.
Product out there to steal.
Absolutely. And so I think a lot of where we're seeing this conversation occur is around newer cars that are highly desirable and easy to move. Not necessarily as easy as they were, 20 years ago or 15 years ago, but definitely much easier now.
You do say 20 years ago. Is that when it was peak auto theft, 20 years ago?
Yeah, so 2000, roughly. And then, of course, in Canada, we introduced electronic immobilizers, which was mandated at the national level in 2007.
Sorry, translation? Electronic
So what that
mobilizers?
means, yes, what that means is essentially you require the key to turn over the car ignition. So, 20 years ago or 25 years ago, we could hotwire a car. It was actually relatively easy. You cannot do that in any car that was made 2007 plus, because that electronic immobilizer essentially prevents the car from being started without the key in the ignition or the key present in the car.
They have figured out other things, though.
They have.
They have.
Yes.
What did I see the other day? That somebody said online, don't put your keys by your front door,
Yes.
because they've got remote readers or something like that that
Yes.
can actually start a car without the key.
Yes.
The key's in the house. They've got this remote reader, and they can steal it right out of your driveway that way.
So that's a much more advanced approach, and we are seeing that there are, of course, adaptations to these kinds of security measures, right? So we've had new security measures put in place, and offenders adapt. But this is much more sophisticated than it has been in the past. So typically, a lot of our auto thieves in the past would have been young kids. They would have been hot wiring cars to get home or to go to parties or to do other things. Now we're seeing that a lot of that is much more sophisticated. So it means there's less offenders, which is a good thing, and also why we're seeing less auto theft in general. But it does mean that when it's being done much more sophisticated.
In which case, who are these increasingly sophisticated people who are more
We don't
responsible?
really know at this stage, so the police would obviously have a better intel on that than we do, because we don't generally have offender data in Canada, so we can't identify who these folks are. But it would suggest that this is much more organized than it has been in the past. And so there is some indications that we do need to deal with that organization of auto theft, but we still need to take that in the perspective that auto theft in general is much lower than it was 20 years ago.
In terms of technology, are the auto manufacturers putting more sophisticated technology into the design of their cars to make them harder to steal?
I think so, absolutely. I mean, the mandate of the electronic immobilizers is a perfect example. It essentially made it impossible to steal cars for a long time.
The old-fashioned way.
The old-fashioned way. And so we are seeing adaptations to that, but those adaptations are still quite slow. Right? And so we're not seeing a return or a regression to the mean. We're not seeing a return to average, essentially. And so there are going to continue to be this sort of back and forth of trying to beat out the offenders. But I think that we're seeing automotive companies really making an effort to make it more difficult to steal those cars.
So if it's not kids out on a joyride now, is it organized crime? Is that who's behind more of it?
We don't know. At this stage, we really don't know. And I think that the way in which the cars are being stolen would suggest that that is potentially what's occurring, because the cars that are being stolen are highly desirable and they're moving offshore. And so there is suggestions that that's the case.
Well, we know this. We know they're being stolen, sent down to a harbor,
Yeah.
put on a container ship, sent overseas, whatever.
And that's responds to a lot of things we've had in the last couple of years. We've had a shipping crisis, so it's made it difficult to get cars into the country as well as out.
Who would have thought the bad supply chain problem was actually good for the...
Help some folks out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't that bizarre? Now, what about reporting? We know there are obviously innumerable types of crime.
Yes.
How diligent are people about reporting when their cars are stolen?
So auto theft is the most reported crime type. And the reason for that is quite simple. If your car is stolen, you generally want to get the insurance for your car. So you're much more likely to report it than anything else. So it's the reporting rates for auto theft are generally around 85%, which is really, really high compared to other crime types.
Huh. What, I'm just, I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but what would be a very low reported crime?
Sexual assault.
Okay, so
Yes.
that's dramatically underreported?
Generally under 10%.
Under
are reported.
10%?
Yeah.
Huh. But car theft's 85%?
85%.
Because people want to,
People want their cars
they
back.
want their cars back.
Or at least a new car.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. Okay, so in that case then, are we comparing a lot of apples and oranges here when we talk about the prevalence of auto theft compared to other kinds of crime?
I think that if we talk about property crime, which is generally what we'll compare auto theft within, so that's talking about break and enters, that's talking about theft from. Generally, all of that we can talk about as one group because they generally are reported well. Whether or not they're responded to and dealt with is a different story, but generally those are high reported crime types. And so we actually can compare those. It's much more difficult to compare those to violent crime types because those are much less reported.
Gotcha. Do you drive a car?
I do.
Ever had one stolen?
No.
Lucky you. Do you know why?
I do some things to prevent that from occurring.
Want to share?
Yes, absolutely. The first thing you actually mentioned already is put your car keys further into your home. Also ensure that one of the things we saw when I was studying this in Brisbane, Australia, was that there was an increase in the co-occurrences of break-and-enters and auto theft. So what that indicated to us was that folks were breaking into the homes to steal the keys, to steal the cars. So less sophisticated than being able to read that electronic immobilizer or that car key, but still very effective. Still an extra step, though. So if you are ensuring your front doors are locked, if you're ensuring that all of those pieces are taken care of, it makes it much more difficult to have your vehicle stolen. Making sure that your key is separate from the car, making sure that you aren't leaving any valuables in the car, all of these things help.
Gotcha. Tara Hodgkinson, Assistant Professor, Department of Criminology, Wilfrid Laurier University. Great to have you here at TVO tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.